Hey, what's up everybody? I'm Sean from Orange Beach UMC. Thanks for checking out this video. I hope you enjoy it. Let's get to it. So we're starting a new series called Like Me. It's a series on comparison. Comparison is something that all of us struggle with at some point of our life. And so we're gonna look at what the Bible says about comparison. And so one of the things that can happen when we start comparing ourselves to other people is that we can start feeling like our life is unfair. And if you're anything like me, one of the most common places this happens is on social media. It's crazy. I can be on Instagram looking through my feed and I'm having a good time. I'm enjoying myself. And then all of a sudden, as I keep looking at other people's lives and seeing what they're doing, I start having this feeling of unhappiness about my own life. Because I'm seeing where people are going on vacation. I'm like, they went to vacation there? Like, didn't they just go there last week? Or like, dang, I wanted to go to that concert. Like, why are they so good at sports? I wish I was taller. You know, youth pastors, they compare themselves to other youth pastors about what they're wearing. It's like, why is it that they look good in everything that they wear and I can't even pick out clothes that match? But you know what I mean? Like, we start looking at other people's lives on social media and it's like, well, they got the newest this, they got the newest that, or their life is so much better because of this. You know what I'm talking about? Have you ever felt that way? I can feel really good about my life and then after 10 seconds of looking at social media, I all of a sudden feel disappointed, maybe even a little ticked off. And that's going to happen whenever we look at what other people are posting because we're comparing it to our reality because it looks like the people who have similar lives than us have a much better version of it. And typically we respond in like 3 different ways. Maybe we start overachieving. Like we want to have that perfect life as well. So we obsess over having that perfect life, just like we see on social media. Or maybe seeing that kind of stuff makes you do nothing. Maybe you just give up. Like, what's the point? Like, I have basically the same life as they do, but their life is better. I don't know why mine's not. So there's no point in even trying. I just have bad luck. Or maybe you're like me. When we get caught up in it, we just play it over and over again in our heads and we become obsessed with what we've seen and how can we copy it. It doesn't really matter how you respond to that feeling of comparison. The end result is that we always feel bad. And the reason why comparison always leads to you feeling bad is because we know ourselves too well. We know the good, the bad, and the ugly. And we only get to see the good in other people's lives. We're not gonna post pictures of arguments with our friends or with our family members. No, when we get into comparison mode, we're going to retake that photo, we're gonna redo that video until it's as funny as it can be because we're trying to be perfect. We'll sit there and we will rewrite that comment 30 million times until it's exactly right. And don't pretend you've never done that. The truth is we've either perfected or we're in the process of perfecting how to project the perfect life, even if it doesn't match what reality looks like. But in our culture, comparison it's almost a way of life. It seems natural to the point that we don't even realize that we're doing it sometimes. So hopefully by talking about this for the next couple of weeks, we can talk about what does comparison look like? How can we catch ourselves doing it? And what can we do about it when we are? So let's talk about Paul for a second. So Paul was a missionary back in the early church, and he wrote nearly half of what we call the New Testament in the Bible. And Paul was a great leader in the early church, but Paul was also not afraid to call people out when they weren't living up to the calling that Jesus had for them. Which means that sometimes Paul made people angry, and sometimes those people would do what we would do in that situation. They would lash out. They would try their best to make Paul look bad. So if we look at 2 Corinthians chapter 10, we're gonna look at verse 12. We'll see Paul's response to some of these people who start criticizing him. And it says, "Oh, don't worry. We wouldn't dare say that we are as wonderful as these other men who tell you how important they are. But they are only comparing themselves with each other, using themselves as the standard of measurement." How ignorant. Can you sense a little sarcasm in Paul's voice? Paul wasn't messing around. He wasn't having it. He clapped back and said, these fools are just comparing themselves to each other. And it's causing some tension that shouldn't be there. In so many words, Paul is saying it's ignorant, it's foolish, it's stupid to waste your time comparing yourselves to other people. Why? Because when you play the comparison game, you never win. Think about what Proverbs 4:23 says. Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. The writer of Proverbs is saying that your heart is important. You have to guard what's going into it because it controls your behavior. And not only that, but it controls what you believe about other people and yourself. And one of the most dangerous things that we can let into our hearts is comparison, because it changes what we think about ourselves. And when we start believing those things, it makes us feel less than, it makes us feel worthless. And when we start believing in those things, it messes with our entire life. So we have to get this one thing right. We cannot compare our worth with what we see in other people's posts. We can't assume that someone else has the perfect life because we don't know what's happening in the background. Their life might be falling apart. That perfect picture, they may have had to take that picture a million times and then edit it like crazy. It's not real. But we know this. We know it's not real. So it sounds great that we need to guard our hearts from comparison, but what does that actually look like? How do you guard your heart? Well, the answer may not be the easiest thing, but it starts with what Solomon, the writer of Proverbs, said. He said you have to guard your heart, which means you have to guard the things that has access to influencing your life. So you have to guard your Instagram, you have to guard your TikTok, you have to guard your Snapchat, you have to guard your conversations, your comments, who you follow, who you don't follow. Pay attention to the people you follow on social media. If every time they post something and they make you feel less than, then unfollow them. And on the flip side, are you following people that are actually filling your life with positivity? And it's not just social media either. We also have to guard who our friends are. Who do we hang out with? What kind of podcasts do we listen to? What kind of movies do we watch? All of these things have the potential to influence our lives. So in order to guard our heart, we have to start paying attention to how these things are affecting us. How do they make you feel? And that's really hard to notice in the moment whenever you're just scrolling through, but we do recognize that feeling of not feeling valuable. So what we need to do is when we feel that way, we need to stop and ask a couple questions. Number one, what is fueling this feeling I have right now? Was it something I saw? Was it something I read? Number two is, because I'm feeling this, what is it causing me to want to do? How do I want to change my life because I feel this way? And number three, who or what am I comparing myself to that's causing me to feel like this? When we stop and ask ourselves these questions, when we start to have that feeling of disappointment, unhappiness, we might be able to pinpoint exactly what caused it. And if we can narrow it down, if we can find what that influence in our life is, then we can get rid of it. And by getting rid of it, we can guard our hearts. And y'all, you're not the only one who struggles with this. All of us, myself included, your friends, your family, your parents, we all struggle with comparison. But the reality is that Jesus doesn't want us to live a life of comparison, because it leads down a road of feeling less than, of feeling unloved and unwanted. No, rather, Jesus wants you to live a life knowing that He loves you for who you are because you are His. And it doesn't matter what everyone else's life looks like. You are important to Him. And He wants you to have the freedom to be yourself. So I hope that this week, while all of us are scrolling through social media, that we can be a little bit more proactive and pay more attention to the things that are either draining us or helping us thrive in the life that Jesus has for us. So thanks so much for watching this video. I hope it was a blessing to you, and I hope it encourages you to take that next step in your spiritual journey. I will see you next time. Peace.